Okay. One. Okay. So we're ready to start. Good evening. Welcome to Poetry and Prose for Popular Perusal, presented by the Diliman Literature Club. Um, and so this is what we'll be talking about today. So this is our lesson plan for today's session. We'll start with introductions, as we always do. We'll get to a quick breakdown of our topic. We'll go over its popular platforms and styles. We'll talk a little bit about the different kinds of popular fiction on the internet. We'll share some experiences with each other. And then we'll talk about getting started and being successful with publishing your work online. So, introductions. Who am I? That is me. I am Carmelo Jeremiah Marquez Crisanto III, also known as Alex Crisanto. I'm the president and founder of the Diliman Literature Club here in FEU. I'm also a freelance writer and the editor-in-chief of the Clarion, our school's newsletter. But who is the Diliman Literature Club? So the Diliman Literature Club is the premier platform for you, our dear students of the FEU, to express and to learn how to express yourselves through the three aspects of literature, that being writing, performing, and reading. So this class today falls under our writing committee. And in the future, probably in February or March, we're going to have classes on voice acting and I think literary analysis is what we're going on. So first, let's break down our topic. The first part of our topic talks about poetry and prose. And as you can see here, they differ in some way. So they're both, in this context, they're both forms of fiction, and they can be used to tell a story and to express emotion. What often separates poetry from prose is that poetry is often meant to be read out loud or read in a certain way in your head. And that means that there's heavy emphasis on the meaning of every single word, the sound that they make when they come out of your mouth, and the rhythm by which they're placed. In classical poetry, you have things like sonnets, you have Oriental poetry like haikus and tanagas, and we'll get to some later. And prose is more story-driven narratives. These tend to be longer. They are not necessarily in a metrical structure like prose, and they're often driven by characters, events, places in the world, etc. So one of the main differences that you'll notice, especially in work that you find online, is that poetry tends to be a snapshot of a particular event or a scene, or or an action or a place in the world, and it takes that snapshot of that time and it puts it into words, whereas prose tends to be a progression, a story that progresses through time. So before we go further, since we are talking about poetry for social media, who can tell me some popular forms of poetry and prose that you can find on the internet? So I'm going to start. Something that's become very popular in recent times is poetry on is poetry on Twitter. If you go to the hashtag VSS or hashtag micropoems, there is a whole subgenre called Twiterature, where they make 140 to 280 character stories or poems. So type it in the chat or unmute your microphone. Tell me what's your favorite kind, or if you know any types of poetry or story that are unique to the internet. So cookie points for anyone who can give me an answer there. All right, so while you're thinking, I'm just going to keep talking more. So prose, some common forms of online prose that you'll find is fan fiction, which we'll talk about later. There's a lot of short story writing that goes on online, and there's something called flash fiction, which is different genres of fiction that are specifically styled to be very short, and it's very challenging. Manila Encounters. Okay, I haven't heard of that. Let's search it. Or who said this? Or Samantha. Would you like to tell us about what Manila Encounters is, if you could unmute your microphone?
Yung Manila Encounters po, mga ano ano siya, part din siya ng Twitter Rayture na
Mm-hmm.
compose siya ng mga short stories na either pwede siyang fiction or pwedeng based on na real life. It ano, usually ano siya, horror movies, short horror movies.
Ah, okay.
Hindi movies pala, stories pala, sorry.
I'm here on Twitter looking at this hashtag. This is great. So here we have Manila Encounters, and these seem to be a play on hyper-realistic fiction, or just straight up not fiction. Short stories written in tweets. Okay, fanfic AUs on Twitter. Yes. Okay, who's here? Welcome, welcome. You're not missing much. We just started our discussion on poetry and prose. For everyone who just joined, by the way, if you look in the Google Meets chat, there's an attendance sheet. Please fill that out so we know who came today and who's going to come next time. So yeah, we have fanfics. Again, we're going to talk about fanfiction later. But so that's just poetry and prose. The title of our class has something else, and that's popular perusal. So here you can see, oh dear, my camera is blocking it. Okay, let's move myself to the center. Okay, there we go. Here you can see a number of perhaps familiar icons. So, okay, who can tell me what these icons are? I think some of these are familiar. I think we already talked about Twitter. Okay, AO3. So someone recognizes the logo. So we've talked about Twitter. There's Instagram. There's Wattpad, Tumblr, and so these are some of the mainstream platforms that of literature sometimes gets posted to. And then on my left here, we have some more esoteric things that you might not recognize if you're not a digital native or if you've not been trawling the net. So AO3, I see a lot of people know what AO3 is. So you can tell me in chat or you can open your mic and tell us. Who can tell us about what AO3 is? Oh, I know you guys know what this is. Who's who's this? Is that Isel? Is do I pronounce your name Isel?
Yes, so based on what I know, AO3 is like a free platform where you can write your fan fictions. And as for myself, I actually have one account, but I still haven't started because I'm still using Twitter for my threads.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so as she said, AO3 is this icon right here, this red one, and AO3 stands for Archive of Our Own, and I think right now it's probably one of the most popular sites to write fan fiction these days. And before AO3, what used to be really popular, and you'll notice that I used the old logo, was Wattpad. So I personally used to write on Wattpad, and Wattpad has actually generated many of the young writers that we have today. These two icons up here are things that I think people might not recognize unless you've been around for a long, long time, because they're very old websites. Who can tell me what this picture is and what that raven symbolizes? Is there anyone who knows? Although it's cool that we have people who've heard of AO3. I personally don't use it very much. I'm still old school for that. Okay, I'll talk about the other two logos. So this logo is Writers Cafe, and it's a smaller website. It's less focused on getting your work out there, and it's more focused on getting feedback for your work. And that Raven is allpoetry.com, which is one of the oldest places on the internet where you can post poetry, and it's also one of the biggest places. So we'll talk more about how to use these websites later on, what these platforms are and what each of them is good for. But yeah, that's the breakdown of our topic. We have poetry and prose for popular perusal. And we're talking here today specifically about the internet. So today in our first session of this class, we're going to learn about these platforms. We're going to learn about how to get started. And so let me just move my camera back over here. Now that we've talked about that, now it's time to share some experiences. So I'm really excited to hear your stories because I heard some people read and they do write. as well. So I will be asking you about your stories. But first, I'd like to share my experience about how I got into all this. So you might have heard of me or seen me in school events being all official. I recently taught a class on how to write news. I taught people how to write essay. But when I really got into fiction was when I was 12. And I was one of those grummy little Wattpad writer kids. And back then, people would get commissions for stories. And I wrote this one fan fiction on Wattpad. And I was just 12. And it went semi-viral. I think we peaked at 650,000 monthly readers. I think that's how the graph used to go. And at the time, because I didn't know any better, the pressure was incredible. There was almost like a 250,000 people reading my story that I posted every month, and that really showed me the power. Oh no, it is long deleted. It's terrible. You don't worry about it. So okay, wait. So uh oops, just a moment. Just a moment. Okay, so right, so that was back in the day. Okay, wait, I am experiencing some technical difficulties. I'll get back to the story in a bit. All right, okay. Problems solved, I think. Yeah. So I got commissioned. So I wrote like lots of small stories before that. And so somebody commissioned me to write their fan fiction. And so a lot of people have ideas for fiction they want to write. I'm sure a lot of us can sympathize with that. But some people, like, they don't want to write it, but they want to read it. So they find writers who take commissions. And so there I was, 12-year-old me, writing gay erotica fan fiction, right? And it went viral. And I was like, oh, what is this? And what happened after that was that the person stopped paying me. He was like, oh, okay, story's over, commission's good. But I got I had so many people reading, and people on Wattpad can be super entitled. And I was getting hate emails from people saying, "Hey, you need to finish this story. You need to write a new chapter." And the pressure was so like, and I caved in because I didn't enjoy writing it. You know, I was 12. I didn't want to be writing that for a living. But I said, okay, I'm gonna open a Patreon. I opened a Patreon and I said, if I get $200 a month from Patreon support, I will write a chapter of this. And so for about 6 months, I was earning almost $300 to $400 a month just from writing this one story until I finally ended the story like a few months after. So that was my experience with this. And that's when I realized that, hey, you know, writing stories online, it's fun, it's great, but it's also the first place that people, like, that a lot of people that, like us, start to discover our passion for writing. And for some people who are lucky enough like me, we also realize that, hey, we can actually kind of make a living out of this. So that's my story of how I got started in all of this. So, okay, who wants to share next about what they write? Maybe, hey, this is a chance to plug your socials, you know. Well, we'll open it on the screen behind me. I can actually open it if you guys want to have a visual representation while you tell your story. I think Isel specifically said that she has a Twitter feed. Do you want to tell us about that? Maybe drop your handle in the chat and we'll look it up. Or if you're shy, you know, it's fine.
Okay, so I can tell you a bit of story about that, but I prefer not showing my Twitter handle.
Okay.
So recently, I think it was this summer before grade 10, and I was reading on Facebook about, because I was in this fandom, Haikyuu fandom,
Haikyuu,
and I
okay.
was like, oh my god, I'm missing this anime, and I really want to read some. And I discovered on Facebook, and I was like reading for like 4 to 6 months, and then um, naubusan ako ng stories to read on Facebook. So,
Uh-huh.
I went to Twitter and then I searched for haiku AUs. And then I saw that there's a lot. Oh my god, like there's a lot.
Yeah.
So like um ships about those characters in just haiku daily. And then I started reading and I think for like 4 months now, I've been also I decided to create my own account to write, and I think it's going well. I have few supporters that like they're really kind when it comes to telling me that oh you're so doing great and things like that, and they're supporting me, which makes me happy. So I write more stories, but right now I'm prioritizing my ACADS.
Okay.
So wala pa. So I haven't really written anything for 1 to 2 months now, but I've been releasing one shots.
Okay, that sounds
So that's
great.
it.
So that's nice. It's nice to know that we have. So I think a lot of you already know the language that I'm gonna be discussing. That's really cool. Haikyuu's the volleyball anime, I think. I used to be a fan. Past tense. Uh, does anyone else have a story that they want to share? Well, maybe you've written something before and you're too shy to share it, or maybe you got rejected from a publisher before. I've gotten rejected from a publisher like 3 times, but we keep doing these things. So we'll get back to sharing later. We have some time allocated for it. But now we'll move on with our discussion, and we're gonna talk about fan fiction versus flash fiction. So I think everybody here knows what fan fiction is. I don't think I need to describe it. Fan fiction is where you take an existing alternate universe, uh, or IP, which is an intellectual property. You either take their characters or their world building, and you use it in your own story to tell a story. And for a lot of people, like what Isel was saying earlier, we see these stories that we love and we want to read more. But sometimes you run out of things to read, and that pushes a lot of people to start writing. And it's a great place to start, but it's also different from this other thing that we have that you might not have heard of, which is flash fiction. So flash fiction is an umbrella term for a bunch of different genres of fiction who all focus on a certain element, and that element is brevity. So brevity uh, is the quality of being short. And someone once told me, I'm probably misquoting, one of my English teachers used to always say that brevity is beauty. The fewer words that you need to express something to someone really shows your skill in writing. And that's especially true online, because online we're competing with, big tech companies, YouTube, and to get noticed, to get your stories noticed, you have to have a mastery of grabbing people in that first line. So today we're not actually going to discuss specifically writing stories. We're doing that in the next session next Tuesday. So make sure to come back for that. Invite your friends. But we're going to discuss more about the conventions of online work, and will also be answering questions that you might have. So a lot of people say, but how do I get started? Or I've already started. What should I do now? Um, when should I upload? What should I write? What's good? And I'm gonna tell you guys a secret, right? So I want everyone to press one if they're ready to hear my secret for starting off writing, right? Press one in the chat. Like send one in the chat if you're ready to hear my special secret for how you start building your writing skills. Okay, a lot of people want to hear it. And this is my secret, and this is just between us, okay? It's a really important secret that I've kept. Here's the secret, guys. Nobody cares. And that's the best thing. So right now, while you're just starting, maybe you have a couple hundred readers, but right now in the grand scheme of things, nobody cares about you. And that might sound, oh, ouch, ouch, naman, right? But this is one of the best things that can happen while you're not famous. One day you will be. while you're not famous, nobody really cares if you do bad. Nobody cares if you mess up. This is the best time where you can experience all the different things that you want to try. You can try writing. Well, if you're like me, you can try writing gay erotica fan fiction, and your parents won't find out about it. Hopefully, mom, you can go away if you're here. Okay, they don't know. So right now, nobody knows about you, and that's great. You have to use this time because one day you're gonna be famous. You're gonna lose this anonymity, and you're gonna be like, oh, I wish there wasn't so much pressure every time I posted a poem. Oh, I wish no one was looking at the story that I'm trying to write. One day you're gonna wish that. So right now you have to use that anonymity. That's one of the most valuable resources you have. Now is the time where you can experiment, where you can try anything, right? And you can share it with good people who are close to you. And that's how you build up your style. So a lot of people say that, I know what I want to write, but every time I try it, it turns out terrible. And this happens with artists too. They say, oh, I can see it in my head, but when I put my pen on the paper, it's terrible. It's ugly. I hate it. I want to burn it. That's great. Because if you don't start finding out all your mistakes now, finding all the things that you hate about your writing style now, and then because getting famous isn't like there's not a lot of skill behind it on the internet because it just happens, just snap of a finger. All of a sudden, a 12-year-old has 600,000 followers, right? So you need to use the time that you have now and try things while no one's looking at you, so you can find out what you hate about yourself and you can fix it, right? Sorry, I'm just reading my notes. You can develop your style in secret, and the algorithm. You don't have to worry about the algorithm or your readers. So that is my number one secret to learning to start writing. While nobody cares about you, try everything. Try all the styles you want. Copy somebody else's style. See if you like it. Make it different. And yeah, that's gonna give you such a good head start. But maybe you've already started. Maybe you have a style you already like using. You wanna get it out there. So we'll talk about specific platforms later. But the step after that, so the step after you figured out what you have, you want to post everywhere. So I'm gonna give you guys some websites that I use later, and I'm sure you guys also have. But when you're starting out, post everywhere because you're going to hate some websites. Like, you're going to post a Tumblr one day, get 50 hate comments, and be put on a joke tag, right? And that's great because now okay, I'm never going near Tumblr. And when you post everywhere, you give yourself more opportunities to be discovered, more opportunities to build an audience. And that audience is very valuable. Just like what Isel said earlier, if you find an audience that cares about you, not just for your stories, but as a writer, they help you grow at the same time while you're giving them great stories to read, right? So, like, post everywhere and post often. So I know, we have school, we're students. Right? You don't have to tell me. We know how hard that is. But a great way to do it is maybe before you start, stock up on a lot of things to post. Once you find the platforms that you're comfortable with, you want to regularly post on that site because you're trying to build up a reader base, and the reader base is what gets you noticed. The more interaction you get on everything you post, the more it gets recommended to other people. So even if you're not posting every day, if you post twice a week, every week, then you're already doing better than about 80% of your competition. That already puts you on like the second page of Google, right? Sorry. So now let's talk about engagement. You'll hear this a lot in the video scene, in the YouTube or Twitch or streamers, content creator scene. They're all like TikTok, they're all looking for engagement. What does engagement mean? In the terms of social media, Engagement is how many people interact with your work, how long do they interact with your work, and how often do they come back to interact with your work. Those are the three things that build engagement together. So when you're writing for engagement, it's hard to compete with a meme, right? You've written this lovely 5 stanza poem. It's about love and heartbreak and finding love again, and then someone posts a picture of a horse, and the caption is Juan, and that gets 3 million shares, right? It's hard to compete in a virtual world. That's why what you have that the memes don't have will be engagement. The meme comes up, people interact with it, and then it goes away. But hopefully, if you followed the previous steps, you found a platform and you're there to stay. So if you can get your writers, so if any of you read webcomics, if you scroll down to the bottom of the webcomic past their donation link, almost always they have a comment section, right? And when you're writing, you want to encourage people, hey, do you have an idea for what I could write next time? Comment it down below. Do you hate what I wrote? Comment down below. Because the more people that you get to engage with you, the more sticky your content gets to the top of the page. And the more likely it gets recommended to more people. So building a community that loves to engage with you helps bring more people into that community that will help engage with you, right? So if you're writing episodic stuff, if you're writing stories that happen in chapters, or like every tweet is one scene of a story, uh, you want to have every one of those will have an action sequence, and it's gonna have something that leaves them wanting more. Don't make every episode a cliffhanger, but maybe leave a small cliff at the end of at the in the middle of your story that makes people say, what's gonna happen to that character next time? And they're gonna wait, and they're gonna go to you. And if you're posting regularly, they're gonna say, it's okay. All I have to do is wait until next Tuesday, and I can go back to the social media writing class, right? And if you write one shots, if you write poems that don't necessarily go over a long periods of time, then one, obviously you want to write in a way that makes people want to read more of it. And you also want to maybe have a link in your bio, maybe have what do they do these days? If you have a website, I think you can have like a read more button. And if you have like a lot of one-shot works, when they read the first one, they're going to go backwards and read the ones you posted before. And if you have enough, that's going to keep them busy until you post the next thing. And the next thing you know, you have your audience hooked. That's what you want to build with engagement and regular posting. Sorry. Here we go. So next segment. This is something I'm sure all of us have experienced. Fighting writer's block. So what is writer's block? We all know what that is. When you had the idea, you were prepared to do the idea, and then you ate dinner, and now you're at your computer and you're like, it's a blank document. Oh, I can't do any. So there's a saying, I think it's the next slide. Let me just check. Yeah, there's a saying. And this is backed up by scientific study. Habits trump willpower. 90% of the time, you're going to pick something that's habitually instinctive rather than forcing yourself to do something. So if you build a habit of getting up every day and writing something, anything, just doing something creative, you're not going to have writer's block, because it's going to be, yeah, I'm supposed to be writing. Oh, I didn't even notice I was writing. For example, I woke up at 3 p.m. today because I slept super late. And the first thing I did that I remember doing was sitting down at my computer. I mean, I'd eaten and everything, but the first thing I did was I sat down and I was like, I need to make my lesson plan for today. And 30 minutes into the lesson plan, I was done with the PowerPoint, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm almost done. Wow, I didn't even notice that. So there's a concept called flow, where you build up a flow state, and it carries you. You get lost in the zone while you're writing. You can make that zone happen all the time just by creating good writing habits, by writing in a place that, if you prefer a place that's well lit, where your eyes can see, or if you prefer, being in the dark with your phone and writing. If you build the habits, if you remove the friction between yourself and writing, if you make it super easy to just, hey, I have an idea, I'm going to take it from my brain, I'm going to put it on the paper, and now it's on the paper, now I can't lose the idea anymore. If you make it super easy for yourself to do that, you're going to find out that you barely have to fight writer's block. And then if you only get writer's block once a month, then, that's just your vacation every month. So another thing, another problem that people can have is, um, especially with posting often, they say, oh, I have school to do, oh, I have work to do. And for some of us, school is easy. For some of us, it's not. For some of us, we have things in our life that are going on that seem to stop us from writing. But trust me, you can find time for it. For example, I'm in 12th grade in Humes, so we have that going for us. We have 2 research subjects. We have a work immersion that happens twice a week. Okay. And then on top of that, I'm the strand president. So if anybody ever has a problem in our section or in my batch, basically, they're like, hey, the website isn't working, or hey, the registrar isn't answering my message. I'm the one who will go, okay, what do you need? What's the problem? And then I'm the club president. So being a club president is super stressful. There's so many documents you have to fill out. And then on top of that, I have this class to teach. Just started teaching this January. This is the 3rd class I'm teaching, and then I have 3 more classes just this week to teach. And in between that, you have to put in so much work to get ready for it, right? And then on top of that, I have a side job. I'm a freelance writer, so I take commissioned articles. And then after that, I have another job which involves a video game. And on top of doing that video game as a job, I like playing video games just for fun. That seems like so much to do, but if you really love writing, and if you've built up that habit where you're like, oh man, this day won't feel complete if I don't write, then you're gonna write, and you're gonna find time for it, and it's gonna become so easy, as long as you can keep up that drive where you work every day. So we're getting to the end of our formal discussion. After this, it'll be tips and tricks, but I want to leave you with a quote. So this is a quote that I wrote, inspired by somebody called Ira Glass, who's a popular writer. Let me minimize my face. You don't need to see my face. Okay, here we go. Here's the quote. You have taste and you have a vision. Even if you don't have the skills yet to bring it into this world, the fact that you know that your work is missing something, that special something, that means that you have the potential to bring that special something to life. So there's a very popular quote from Ira Glass. And he says that nobody tells this to beginners, All of us who do creative work, we get into this, we start writing because we have good taste. We know what we want to read. We know what we want to write, right? But there's a gap. For the first couple of years you make stuff, so I'm just reading the quote out and I'm inserting my experiences. The first couple years you make stuff, it's just not that good, right? Even that story that had 600,000 reads, I hated it. I deleted it. It's gone. No one will ever read it again. It was disgusting, right? It's just not that good. It's trying to be good. You're close to being good, but it's not, right? And it's disappointing, but it's great that it's disappointing. When you get disappointed in yourself, it's because you know that your taste is good. Your taste is, Ira Glass says, your taste is killer, right? You know what's good. And you hate yourself because you're not good yet. But this is common. Everyone has this, right? We know that our work isn't special yet. And the only way to make, this is what you want, this is where you are, the only way to get there is by giving yourself a deadline, the way I told you, making yourself write every week, every day, keep on making work so you can find all those things that you hate about yourself and how you write, and you can throw it away. And in years, and it does take years, I have been writing for 6 years and I still want to get better. Eventually, you're going to get there. You're going to be good. And then you're going to want even more. And that's the best thing, because as you get better at writing, you want to get even better. And so, yeah. It's going to take a while. You know, it's normal that it takes a long time, and you've just got to fight your way through. So that's the end of our formal discussion. Now we get on to the tips and tricks part and the question and answer. So you can ask me questions about anything you want, except for that story. You can't ask me what it was about. You can ask me questions about anything. You can ask questions about the club. You can ask questions about future classes. If you want to present some of your writing and have us critique it, we can do that too. While I prepare the sample, the sites that I recommend for you guys to check out. Okay. Do I have it open? So just feel free to just unmute your mic or put it in chat if you have anything you want to say. Here we go. So I'm just going to go through all the websites we talked about earlier so that people who haven't seen them know what they look like. I believe that's it. Here we go. So this is AO3. This is what Archive of Our Own looks like. This is a great site to find work that you like. You can browse by tag. You can find, you know, mythical creatures and beings. Just this is an R18 site. You can see the big tags there. So search at your own risk, and you can actually start writing here. You just click this get invited, and you can start going. Wattpad. So Wattpad's had a little bit of fall from grace. It's not what it used to be. They even changed their logo. It looks weird now. But this is still a great place to start writing. And I think they run competitions where you can get noticed. This is Tumblr. I don't have a lot on my feed because I don't really use this. This is also a general posting site, and this is all poetry. So the site looks ancient. It looks like it's from 2004, but this is one of the oldest websites, and that's great because it means that a lot of the time you have a mature audience, and whenever you see these poems, other people can comment and tell you what they liked about it. But a great place to find feedback for your work. So a lot of people ask me, how do I get feedback for what I do? There's a good site. This is one that I love. This is called writerscafe.org, where you can write poems. And so this is why that's the picture I showed. That's the default one. You can write poems or stories, and whenever you have something, people can review it, and they're incentivized to review it. And that means that if you use the website regularly, you're not really going to get a following on Writers Cafe because everyone else here is also a writer. There's not a lot of people who are just reading. But this is a great place to get feedback for your work, as long as, again, you're posting regularly. I don't think I need to talk about Instagram. I think we all know what Instagram is. We talked about Twitter. So Facebook. Facebook's actually a place where you can post stuff. You can post stories on Facebook. There are writing groups on Facebook. I'm not going to leave my Facebook tab open. Nobody needs to see that. You can write stories on Facebook. You can share. You can find mentors over there, although I'm not a big fan of Facebook. And then here's a nice place where, so we were talking about fighting a writer's block. So this is Readsy. Readsy itself is a service that helps people who want to publish their book design it. But what I love is you find their prompts, and every week they have a contest for $50, and there's always less than 500 submissions. So it's actually easier to win than you might think, right? And they give you a theme, and you'll get a theme to write. And what's really cool when they give you a theme to write, a lot of the times they give you suggested things to read about to make your story better. And I think this refreshes weekly, so you have a chance to get $50 if you do write something cool. And it doesn't cost anything to submit, which is really nice. So when I was saying post your work everywhere, join competitions, you know? That's also a great way, because once you win that, then you can post it, and then you're a big thing already. But you might say, oh, I want a competition. Where do I post it? What if I don't like any of those sites? Well, you can make your own site. So again, when I was 12, I made a website. I hate how it looks, but here it is, you know? It says, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And I used Wix. Wix specifically is the site that I used because I was 12, I didn't know any better. I would recommend WordPress if you were gonna try to make your own website now. Although Wix has a nice automated design feature. I think at one point this website was getting, I think 5,000 monthly like views, which was big for me because I was 12, you know. Uh, and I put all my poems here. I even made a blog. And yeah, having your own website adds a level of professionalism to your work. And if you're putting it in a portfolio, say when you're applying for college, having a website is actually pretty cool. And I mean, everyone can make a website now, but a lot of people don't, and that's what makes it really strong. Where so here we can see we have a list of poems that I've written, and I put anchors there so you can jump to them. Yeah, we don't want to read what 12-year-old Alex was writing, you know? Okay, so yeah, that's our discussion. Thank you all for joining. Last chance for any questions, etc. If you want to tell a story, ask me about my stories. Uh, so okay, well, again, giving you time if you want more question, if you want to ask a question. Uh, Mahirap bang maging freelance writer? Surprisingly, no. So we have another class. If you're interested in freelance writing, you can still sign up for the other courses that Diliman Literature Club is giving. So you learn more about it if you join our article writing made easy class. But freelance writing isn't a steady job. It's like getting art commissions if you're familiar with that with how that works. There's a lot of websites online that help people who want to freelance. And just this summer, I did a 2-month job where I wrote 6 articles, and I think I earned about $250 from writing 6 articles long. And they were articles about how to do art, and I can barely draw. So it's very surprisingly easy as long as you have the right training and technique, which you can learn again at our other class. So I know some people here, I think, are already part of the Diliman Literature Club, but I'm going to advertise it anyway, especially for the recording. So the Diliman Literature Club, as I said earlier, is the premier place to learn more about this. So this was a sneak peek into what we do regularly at the club. We also have our own Minecraft server where we do meetups virtually. And if you're part of the Diliman Literature Club, you'll be in our Discord and Messenger and Facebook group. So you'll be in contact with more people like myself who are very eager and willing to help you in your exploration of a creative journey. So if I can find the Google form for it, for people who are interested in signing up to, so you don't have to sign up right away to be a member of the club. You can just sign up to be at our next club meeting, where you can see if you like being around. And yeah, so is this the right one? Is this the right one? Okay. So let me just fix this up. Number section. Okay, how to send via link. There we go, short link. Okay, so in the meeting chat, that's a Google form that you can fill out to sign up for the Diliman Literature Club. And we don't have any mandatory activities. We're just there. We're very supportive. We run events like this privately within the club too. We're planning to run even more in February. So yeah, if you want a place where you can get people to read and review or get ideas, that's a great place to start. And so you all came here via a sign-up link from a poster. And on the 26th, on next Tuesday, I'll be teaching you guys specifically how to write different kinds of flash fiction and different kinds of poetry that you can post. So that's what we'll be doing next session. And you can invite your friends to sign up again, sign up using that link. And even if they didn't get to this class, they can still attend the next one. And there's a lot to learn as you guys. So if you like this, share it with your friends. if you have questions, or even if you're not part of the club, we're very happy to review your stories, your essays, any of your works, and give comments and feedback. You can find us, I'm going to put it in the meeting chat. We're dillamanlit@gmail.com. You can send anything there. Send it to us for review, for comment, or even just, if maybe you want advice, where do I share my work? You just have some questions. Me or one of the other officers is almost always free to help you guys out. So, with that being said, that wraps up our class for today. Thank you all for coming to Poetry and Prose for Popular Perusal, presented by the Diliman Literature Club. Have a good night, everyone.